What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams for the first time ever at the FBS level is now heading to Springfield, Missouri. The Missouri State Bears are the second and other team that we have to cover that is joining FBS competition. They will be part of Conference USA this season. My name is Nate Bope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. Thank you all so much for clicking on the video and, of course, for helping to support the channel. You want to support the channel even further? Go down below and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, hey, you might as well ring the bell. Turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss a thing during the rest of prediction season, and especially as we get into the college football season as well. Now, I am a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, so if all of you want to see the cool stuff that I get up to while still being up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, please give me a follow at TailgateNate29 on Twitter, Instagram, working on some other social medias as well, and you can even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I do want to thank all of you supporting and interacting with me and the channel in whatever way that you may already be doing so. With all that said and done and out of the way, let's introduce, for the first time, an FBS head coach, Ryan Beard, who has seen some good success with this Missouri State program over the past couple of seasons. I've always been the guy to sit here and tell you, look, out of the two that are joining the FBS ranks this year, I personally believe that Delaware is a little bit better equipped to handle the FBS level. However, that doesn't mean that Missouri State is not well equipped. They got some really good players coming back, have some really good pieces, and much like Delaware, they saw good success at the FCS level, hoping that can transition here as an FBS program. How do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are going to go through a roster overview where the offense is over here to the left and the defense is over here to the right. At the end of the video, we will go through the Bear football schedule. I will give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. And this video overall is here to tell you all what I think about Missouri State in 2025 out of Conference USA. Before we do get started, returning production numbers are below. They're according to ESPN. They both factor in, I should say they all factor in transfer portal additions, only up to a certain yet very, very small percentage. And what's more, your recruiting and transfer portal ranks for the class of 2025 will be according to 24/7 Sports. Before we get started, make sure you stay hydrated, especially as we are entering the dog days of summer. Let's start with your offense and your offensive coordinator, Nick Petrino, going to be your OC this year. When you take a look at the quarterback room, I mean, you do get a stellar passer coming back. Jacob Clark has a phenomenal stat line from last season, 3,600 yards. Tack on a little bit extra onto that number as well. 26 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, darn near 70% completion percentage, and almost 10 yards per attempt. That's not yards per completion. Yards per completion is going to be a whole lot higher than that. That is strictly yards per pass attempt that he threw. So he basically, I'll do the math real fast. I was trying to crunch the numbers in my head and it was not working. 13.75 yards per completion. Guys, that is a really good stat line. And Jacob Clark, I think, is going to be probably one of the better quarterbacks in Conference USA. Now, knowing what I've said about Missouri State before, Nate, how can you feel like this is a team that is going to be a struggle, that's going to go through a period of massive growth as they enter the FBS level? Well, Sam Houston State was a team coming in that, hey, had some really good talent and just overall did not perform well. James Madison, Jacksonville State, they did. So it obviously is a situation here, or I should say, then you look at Kennesaw State, they didn't either, even though they had some good pieces. So when I look at Missouri State again, yes, I see some really good pieces after having a very successful last couple years with the FCS level. Jacob Clark has got a lot changing around him. He is going to be a monster piece for Missouri State this year. I'm not going to rule out anything for him. He wants to improve on that number. Great. He can absolutely get a 4,000-yard campaign. Last season was his first full year as a starter, so we'll see if it was just a blip on the radar. I don't think it was. I think he's going to be absolutely spectacular for Missouri State this year. I think you got a good quarterback in Jacob Clark, but again, like I just said, you have a lot around him that is going to change, especially this running back room. The entirety of your rushing unit pretty much going to be overhauled by the transfer portal. You lose your leading rusher in Jacardia Wright. He is now with the NFL Seattle Seahawks. 824 yards and 14 touchdowns. And your second leading rusher, Jaden Becks, has transferred over to North Texas, 460 yards and 7 touchdowns. So you do lose 21 touchdowns of production from your ground game, nearly 1,300 yards, and nobody else on the team even had more than 10 carries outside of the quarterback, but you have to include sack yardage and everything of the like there with his total. So otherwise, you really are revamping this running back room. Now, albeit, there is some good transfer, or I'd say there are some good portal pieces that are going to be here. Shamari Lawrence is an FIU transfer, is formerly from South Dakota State. Last year, just 177 yards in the touchdown, but the year before, 566 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. Or sorry, 4 rushing touchdowns. I was reading the wrong stat line there. 4 rushing touchdowns. The 8 comes from, well, that's the amount of receptions he had out of the backfield in a pass-catching realm. So, okay, you do have him coming in as a solid piece, as well as a true freshman by the name of King Davis. He's probably going to play a really big part in this running back room, and of course some other transfers I could mention in this room as well. Those are probably the top 2 guys that I would mention, though. One transfer in Lawrence, the other a true freshman in King Davis. Wide receiver room. Let's talk about the pass catching room as a whole, actually, because you do lose some really key pieces off of last year's team. Your leading wide receiver, a guy by the name of Hunter Wood, 770 yards and 3 touchdowns on a team high 63 catches. He is gone, and your tight end there, Lance Mason, has transferred over to Wisconsin. So those are some really notable losses. They were actually your top 2 receivers from a season ago. However, other than that, you really do have some nice solid pieces coming back. Yeah, you're going to lose Devontae Key and maybe some other depth pieces, but your third returning wide receiver in Jamarie Robinson is going to be coming back. He's got a really nice career under his belt so far over the past 2 seasons. Combined, almost 1,100 yards and 9 total touchdowns. Again, that's split between 2023 and 2024. So he's going to be a really good option for you. You still have James Blackstrain, one word, last name. Dash Luke is going to be in there as well. That's a name that you think is flipped. It's not. His first name Dash, last name Luke. This is still a pretty solid wide receiver unit. Does have a few transfers, but they're probably going to play depth positions. Isaiah McMorris is a speedy guy coming over from Nebraska. Ronell Johnson's a good Stetson transfer, so on and so forth. Tight end room is going to see a new guy step up. Gary Clinton is going to be taking over that lead role, while Dylan Hipp is entering from Ole Miss through the transfer portal. So tight end room really going to be overhauled as well. Clinton did play a little bit last year, 6 catches for 52 yards, but has big shoes to fill if he's going to take over the likes of Lance Mason. As far as the offensive line goes, I think this is really where Missouri State could struggle offensively this season. They allowed 39 sacks last season. Clark has got to be able to, I don't even want to necessarily say be more mobile in the pocket, because that's not his game. This offensive line, I think, quite frankly, just has to do a much better job at being able to defend the opposing pass rushes. And obviously, look, Missouri State was in a really good conference at the FCS level. It's still a step up in competition. You're going to be seeing guys that have played a lot of power forward time either falling down here, or you're going to see some of the better edge rushers and linebackers that Conference USA is going to have to offer, and there are some really darn good ones in this conference. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest form of adjustment, is this offensive line. You got a lot of questions that you need to answer, and I think it's the biggest key position. Overall, 71% returning production for this offense. Yes, I told you they're overhauling that running back room. You're going to need some pieces to work out, but I think Jacob Clark has still got a very nice group of receivers, and Missouri State can have a really good offense again this year, just like they did last year. However, that wasn't the problem for this team last year. The problem was this defense. It needs some absolutely massive improvements. For as good as the offense was, the defense really did not help Missouri State's case out that much last year at all. And especially the major thing, and again, it goes back to talking about the offensive line. You need to fortify your unit up front. So I've mentioned this honestly with a couple of other teams as of late. Line of scrimmage play going to be really huge for a couple of these teams I've previewed recently that could see their fair share of struggles this year, maybe struggled on the lines last year. Trench play is one of the biggest keys in a college football game, period, end of story. But especially for a Missouri State team that is entering a new level of competition. albeit they were in one of the better conferences in FCS, as I said earlier. This is a defense that has got to take some absolutely gigantic steps forward. Okay, well, who do you lose off your front line? Only your top two sack men from last season, Darian Smith, as well as Jalen Williams. I believe Smith had 5.5. I'll fact check that. No, sorry, I'm thinking of Williams. Williams had 5.5, and then Smith actually led the team with 7. So again, those are your top two guys that are going to be leaving. No more are Smith and Williams no longer with the Bear program. So okay, you're going to get Giles Chio. Hopefully I pronounced that last name correctly, as well as that first name. I'll just apologize for that mispronunciation. I probably butchered it really bad, and so I do apologize. Yeah, he is going to return to lead this unit. I believe he's an interior defensive lineman. Fact check my notes. Yes, he is. He's going to play that left end D tackle position for you, at least according to ourlads.com. You still got some solid pieces coming in around him. Mitchell Toney, as well as David Townley. Some of the other guys that do return. And you do get a really interesting transfer in DJ Wesselak that's going to be coming in here. I think he's a great portal addition. Is coming over from Oregon State. Is also a former Missouri Tiger, did not play that much last season, just 2 tackles, but I think he can fit into this defense really nicely and be a good piece, probably coming off the edge for this defense this year. However, your second level in the linebacking room gets shredded. It is toast. Every single major piece in your linebacking room from last year, even a lot of your good depth options, just like that, gone. No longer a Bear. So you're going to need a lot of returners to step up mainly. This was not a team that heavily utilized the transfer portal. So guys like Jared Lloyd, Jashawn Cooper, Kanye Young, they're going to have to step into some bigger roles this year. But you did get a really interesting transfer in Jalen Brooks. He is coming over from Campbell, formerly from North Carolina, so a guy that has also seen that Power 4 time. I think he's going to be a really good addition to this defensive line for you. And as far as your secondary goes, secondary overall pretty solid last season. You take a look at what they were able to force as a team. 35 passes defended, 12 picks, did have a pick 6. Not too bad in there at all. Definitely not too bad. So overall, when you go and you look at the secondary unit, again, it's kind of the same with a lot of this defense. You do have a lot of good secondary pieces that are going to depart. However, unlike some of your other units, especially this linebacker room, defensive line, you can argue it a little bit, and I think I did. You do have some good leaders coming back in this secondary. Most notably is going to be a guy by the name of J.J. O'Neal, who's going to slot back into that strong safety spot for you this season. Lots of other good experienced pieces that might be playing bigger roles than they did last year, such as Thomas Anderson and Dylan Simmons, as well as a couple transfers. Jordan Dunbar, of which I think is a really good one, coming over from Kansas State, is formerly of Rice. I think a pretty high upside player that's going to slot into play corner for you this year. And then another one that's projected to start in McGuire Neal, who slots into that free safety role. He's a Charlotte transfer who in limited action did pick off a pass last season. Your kicker is going to return. Yusef Obeid. I probably butchered that name as well, but he is your returning kicker, while a transfer punter enters the room in Anthony Frederic and is projected to start. There is your special teams report because, hey, kickers are people too. And when overall I take a look at this Missouri State team, I still see a lot of really good pieces. However, again, the biggest key here is trench play. And when you take a step up in the level of competition, the biggest thing that you see is guys are a lot bigger. They are more physical. They are tougher. That's why I think trench play going to be a really important key for Missouri State. And when you take a look at this 2025 football schedule, I mean, non-conference is going to be really tricky. I am going to say that. Non-conference is going to be tricky. But again, you enter into what many people would argue is the weakest conference in college football, at the FBS level at least. And when you look at this schedule, I mean, you're picking out a game, okay, there I think we can win, there I think we can win, oh, there I definitely think that we can win. This is still a very manageable road, and especially when you get into conference play, you do see some of the heavy hitters, but you also see some of the lower tier teams that are projected to be in the conference this year. We'll get there when we get there. But honestly, though, looking at the schedule, I'm very disappointed that Missouri State and Delaware are not playing each other this season. I don't think I mentioned that in my Delaware video, but I really am. Wanted to see these two teams joining the FBS level go head-to-head this year. Unfortunately, not going to happen. Maybe next season, though. Maybe next year. When you look at the FanDuel odds, only one number should stand out to you because there's obviously not going to be a number for odds to win the conference, get into the playoff, anything of sort. They are not eligible for the postseason because of the grace period when you transition ranks of play. So 4.5 is that over-under win total. Believe that was the same as Delaware. You're looking and thinking, okay, this team's going to pull out a couple wins, but overall not be anything too exciting. They have the potential to be something exciting, but like I said, their FBS tenure is going to start out with a really, really tricky conference slate. You got 2 on the road that I honestly think you drop both of them, and then a home game against, well, a team that, I don't know, just made the college football playoff last year. So we'll start with USC. I know not that great of a year last year for the Trojans, and this is probably do or die time for Lincoln Riley. Jade Maeva is going to be taking over the quarterback position this year. They got some really good transfers coming into this skill position room to pair with some good wide receivers. You have Prince Strachan coming in, Eli Sanders, Wayman Jordan. They're going to be transferring into the running back room. 2 really good pieces there. And this USC defense took a massive leap last year. I think they can take another one this year, as well as it being a road game in the Coliseum. Talk about your welcome to the FBS moment. That's going to be a loss for Missouri State. And even though this is a Marshall program that is losing everything, Charles Huff is gone over to Southern Miss. He's going to be the head coach there now. A lot of Marshall pieces are following him. Marshall is a team that loses even more to the portal that aren't going to Southern Miss. So on and so forth. This team gets shredded. They're building something entirely new here. Marshall is going to be building a new program. I think you still got a lot of good talent here. I think you utilized what you could pretty well out of the transfer portal, and I still don't think Marshall's going to be anything super special. I do think that they're going to have their points of struggle this season, and it's going to be really hard for them to get back into that Conference USA championship game. But I do think Marshall still has the ability to be pretty solidly competitive. And that's where I definitely think that this is going to be a loss for the Missouri State Bears. Marshall's still a team with a lot of good, solid talent. A winnable game for sure, but especially it being on the road, I don't think helps the Bears. That is a loss. And then I also, I think pretty obviously I'm going to have you losing this one to SMU. Team that made the college football playoff last year can absolutely get back there again this season. SMU is a team that's going to return Kevin Jennings, return some really good pieces at wide receiver, even though they did lose some good skill position pieces. Defensively, you got some good pieces coming back, and I think Rhett Lashley's a pretty good coach. SMU, kind of a team that, okay, is taking a backseat a little bit to what Clemson's doing, understandably. Even teams like Miami and Georgia Tech really getting hyped up. The love for SMU, I think, is still got to be there. They're still going to be a really good team out of the ACC this year, and that'll be a loss for Missouri State. So, yikes, welcome to the FBS. You lose your first 3 competitions. However, you're going to get a fairly familiar opponent when you play an FCS team in UT Martin. Now, University of Tennessee Martin was always one of the better FCS programs, and I believe, my memory better not fail me here, I believe they are in the preseason FCS top 25. Don't quote me on that because I'm not overly positive, but usually you see UT Martin hanging right around that troop of teams, and this is still a team that is going to give Missouri State a fight. They're still going to be competitive. However, I do think this is the Bears team that is overall more talented. I think especially that quarterback in the likes of Clark will really be able to help out Missouri State here. Jacob Clark shines. Missouri State wins. There's your first win as an FBS program. But then once you join in Conference USA, you get thrown right to the Wolves, and you talk about, oh, I don't know, probably the most consistent team this conference has seen since they've joined it. Western Kentucky's always been a really good side in here, and honestly, you could argue another team that's also on the schedule for that title, but that's not what I'm here to do. Western Kentucky really is a good team, and even though they lost a lot of pieces, including a quarterback wide receiver duo, that's going to join a former WKU offensive coordinator as the head coach at FAU. This is the Western Kentucky team that's getting Maverick McIver from Abilene Christian. Love him. Really good transfers elsewhere. Love what they did in the portal. Defense should take a nice step up. Made the conference championship game last year. They got a really nice shot to do it again this season. So I do see that being a loss to Western Kentucky. Middle Tennessee last year really did struggle under Derek Mason. So this is going to be year 2 of Derek Mason, I do believe. And Middle Tennessee is a team that I've been counting on the past couple of years, not necessarily putting money or anything on them. I'm the worst person to ask about betting. I'm not a professional in that regard at all. I've just always thought they were going to do pretty well, and it's never served me right. Well, dang it, I'm making the same mistake again. I think you go on the road and lose this one to Middle Tennessee. I absolutely love their quarterback, Nick Vadiato. I think even with the portal losses, he's got some really good weapons surrounding him in that wide receiver room. Defense should be better than last season as well. I do have this as a pretty good win for Middle Tennessee and a loss for Missouri State. When you get into the back half of the schedule, I think is really where you're going to see more of those winnable games come to fruition. And it starts with this one right here on the road against New Mexico State. I think the Aggies are a vulnerable team this year, and I think again, if this is a Missouri State team that's going to make some noise, they're probably going to do most of their damage in the second half of the season. However, I still think New Mexico State gonna be a little bit too much, especially on the road in Las Cruces. The reason? Well, this could be a pretty good quarterback duo, or I should say pretty good quarterback duel, because you have Logan Fife over there as the quarterback for New Mexico State. He's got some solid weapons around here. I've obviously told you how good Jacob Clark is here with Missouri State, so could be a little bit of a quarterback duel. But I'll go with the team that I think overall going to have a little bit of a stronger offensive line, that being New Mexico State, even though it is all built through the transfer portal. And you got some really nice pieces defensively as well. Tyler Martinez in the linebacker room, DeCarrick Hobbs in the secondary, so on and so forth. Got some really good players, and I think New Mexico State does win that game. However, Missouri State's not going to go over, right? They're going to win one, maybe two games in conference play at the very least. I think this team's got too much talent on it, and there are going to be teams that won't be able to handle the ability of Logan Clark. Well, FIU is a team that could, being a pretty good secondary from last year. However, that secondary does lose a lot of pieces trying to replace it in. I think they take a step back, and overall, even good secondaries are going to struggle with a quarterback that can really sling the rock. That's exactly what Jacob Clark can do. If I've said Logan throughout this video, I don't know why Logan Clark is coming to mind just now. It is Jacob Clark, as it said on the slide previously. FIU is a team that I see being pretty vulnerable. Now, again, you got to watch out for their quarterback in K'Wan Jenkins. He's a dynamic piece, but I do think this is where Missouri State picks up one of their wins in Conference USA. Do they get another one? Well, if they do, it's not going to be against the Liberty Flames. Even without Caden Salter, Quentin Cooley, they're still probably the best coach team in the conference with Jamie Chadwell on that sideline. And Liberty is a team that's got a butt ton of really, really nice pieces, offensively, defensively, and I think they're one of the front runners to be a competitor for that group of 5 spot in the college football playoffs. So there's a loss on the road. These last 3 games, though, I think all winnable for this program. However, I love the direction that Scotty Walden is taking UTEP in. I think you do see a step up in competition here with this team. I think a lot of pieces, especially that quarterback Skylar Locklear, takes a nice step in the right direction. I absolutely love his wide receiver room. So another instance of a quarterback with a good wide receiver room that I just think is going to outduel what Missouri State has got on this side, also getting through that Bear defense. Kennesaw State, okay, you want to talk about another winnable game. Kennesaw State is absolutely that. This is a team that already was not very good last season. They really have to go through that building process in the FBS ranks, you would think. But there's a really good chance that Kennesaw State can get one more, if not double their win total from last season because of all they have coming back and the plethora of talent they have entering through the transfer portal, especially with guys like quarterback Dexter Williams. Kennesaw State's going to be a really solid side this year. I don't think they're going to be spectacular. They probably might not even be average. I think they're still going to struggle to hit that 6-win mark, but all that returning production, getting used to the FBS level, and especially bulking up with the transfer portal, I think it's going to work out really well for them. So that's a loss there to the Owls of Kennesaw State, and then Louisiana Tech is the last game up. If this team disappoints again, they're going to be vulnerable to anybody and everybody that sits on their schedule. However, I think this is the year that Sonny Coombe maybe does not excel within this program, but I think they got enough talent here to be a solid force. Probably going to end up sitting around the middle ranks of Conference USA, but this is a do or die year for Sonny Coombe as well, probably for his job. I think he's got a lot of solid pieces here. It starts offensively with some good returning talent, especially your quarterback, whose name is escaping my mind. I will find out for you here in 1 second. And then again, just overall some really good pieces. Evan Bullock, that's the guy, younger guy that I think has got a lot of good upside and some good defensive pieces return as well. So overall, you look at Missouri State 2-10. Again, like I said, I think this is going to be the team that enters FBS play and really struggles this year. I think they got a lot of good pieces. I think Jacob Clark is a really nice quarterback, and I do like this offense, but I'm worried about the offensive line. I'm worried about the defensive line. You have to replace a ton of heavy hitters on your defensive side of the ball there as well. I think this is a team under Beard that probably overall can be pretty solid, and I think can absolutely do a lot better than the 2-10 that I'm predicting. Alas, this just to me is the team that enters FBS play, sees the level up in competition, and says, whoa, okay, we got some work to do. That's exactly what I see with Missouri State this year. Still some good pieces, but overall, not a horribly great season for your first year in FBS play. It will go up from here. I am confident in that. Missouri State is not going to stay at this level for very long. They might go through some growing pains this year, and then they'll start to really figure it out next season. That's going to do it from this video, but let me know what you think about the Bears in the comment section below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.